I'm Jeff Chittister, and I am the Executive Director for External Affairs at the Batten School. I lead engagement for our MPP program, which is actually a really easy job with the team that we have at Batten. One of the great things about our school that you'll sort of get to realize is that it really is a community, and it's not just a student community. It's a student, faculty, administration, alum. It's a full-on Batten community, and we rely on each other. We're all rowing in the same general direction. And so, when I talk to people about career outcomes, as far as what the topic is tonight, my job is made a lot easier because we have people like Stevis and Hannah Guffey leading the ship on that. And so I'm really appreciative to have them here tonight to talk to you. We're a professional school, which is, professional schools are meant to prepare you to thrive in a professional community. A part of that, it's important to find the jobs that you want. As a school the size of the Batten School, we're a pretty small school by design. It's really rare to have a career services, not just even a person, but a team at a school this small. And I think that's really indicative of the commitment that we do have to making sure that people find the right place to work. You will get to know them well if you come to Batten. They are great advisors, they are great allies, they are great friends, they are incredible resources. And again, I am really appreciative of both of them. So I think they're both going to go and introduce themselves first, but let me kick it over to Steve to get it started.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Before I introduce myself and allow Hannah to introduce herself, I'm going to go on the assumption that most of you are fairly unfamiliar with UVA, and so let me just briefly describe, how career services works at the university, and then how we fit into that, and then I'll introduce our team. So like most major universities, UVA has a fairly large and robust and well-resourced career services office. And they're actually located in a building that's behind the football stadium. And believe it or not, in normal times, when those suites are not being used in the football stadium for football, that's where nearly all of the on-grounds interviewing, as we call it here, is done. So employers come and they get assigned a suite for a day or two, and the students go up and go into the football suites, and that's where most of the employer-student interaction is done. We leverage their resources extensively. They operate Handshake, for those of you that have heard of that platform, which is the employer-student interface that many of your universities may use. Simplicity is a similar type product. They put on, resource, and man all of the major career fairs that go on at the university. So we have a great partnership with the UVA Career Center, and we leverage their resources and manpower for a great team effort. They are actually broken down into what are called career communities. And one of those is the public service and government career community. So in addition to leveraging all of the UVA Career Center's resources, there's a team of 2 or 3 individuals who specialize in public service and government opportunities. And we partner very closely with them. In fact, Hannah came to Batten from the public service and government career community at the UVA Career Center. We basically hired her away, essentially, about a year and a half ago. So that's kind of the overall big picture for the university. Now, some of the schools, engineering, Batten, the Commerce School, have dedicated career services offices as well. And we're fortunate, as Jeff indicated, to be in that position. So we have a team of 4 of us that some of us 100% of the time and some of us part-time focus on career services. We're led by Jill Rockwell, who's the Senior Assistant Dean for Student and Career Services. So she is a traditional Dean of Students, as you would imagine, and familiar with from your previous university experiences. So anything that has to do with students and student issues and things like that, Jill weighs in. She's also a longtime career counselor. She is an attorney by trade, and she's been at both Illinois, the Duke Law School, and here in the student services, career services role. So she's been doing it for at least 2 decades, if not a little longer. I report to her. I'm the director of career services and alumni engagement. Hannah is the assistant director, and then we also have a graduate student intern. The Curry School of Education here has a program where students come in to earn their master's in education. One of the concentration areas is higher education. And we, for the last 2 years, have had a graduate student intern working on our team who is interested in going into higher administration in a career services or student services type of role. And the gal we have this year, her name is Megan Long, actually came to Curry from a corporate recruiter position. So she worked for Qualcomm in human resources and was a recruiter for Qualcomm. So she's been, on the other side of this equation until this past summer. Okay, so a little about me. I was in the Air Force for 30 years, and I ended up at UVA as the Air Force ROTC commander. So that's what brought me to grounds back in 2012. I did that for 4 years, and then I retired from active duty in 2016, pretty much 4 years ago this month, and was fortunate enough to start at the Batten School full-time in January of 2017. First as the assistant director, and now as the director of career services. And I also have the alumni engagement piece. So we have a little over 1,000 alums. I think most of you know we're about 11, 12-year-old school. So I'm the interface with the alumni. We have an alumni advisory board that helps us in a number of ways, including internship and job opportunities. And I'm kind of the connection. And I think that's it about me. So Hannah, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Steve. So as Steve indicated, I previously worked in the Maine UVA Career Center with the public service and government career community. So I've actually been with UVA for the last 5 years, 5.5, coming up in June. And so my background is actually in clinical mental health counseling. I have my graduate degree from University of North Carolina in counselor education, and worked a couple of years after my graduate degree within a Dean of Students, student conduct crisis management type position, and then transitioned to working in career services when my husband and I moved to Charlottesville and started working at UVA in 2015. So I have a strong background in career services, a strong background working with the public service and government career community, which, as Steve indicated, was part of the larger career center. So familiar with those resources, worked very much with Batten students prior to officially switching over to Batten about 1.5 years ago. And I personally have really loved the transition because I think one of the best things that Batten has to offer is the opportunity to build sincere relationships. So as Steve indicated, I think it's kind of unique, or as Jeff indicated, it's kind of unique for such a small school to have a dedicated career services team like we do, and the size that we do. And I think it offers the opportunity for us to really get to know all of our students, and especially our MPP students. As Steve is going to probably talk a little bit more about this later, but as part of the MPP program, there is a required internship that students complete between their first and second year. And we get to know our students really, really well in trying to figure out what it is you're interested in, help match you up with the internship opportunities that might give you the best experience that you're looking for to help you get to your next step. And so that's that experience, getting to have, consistent relationships with students, really learn what it is you're interested in and help to get you there, has been my favorite part about transitioning to this role. So that's a little bit about me. I want to talk to you a little bit too about our services. So the services that Batten offers, and then also how that compares to the services that the Maine Career Center offers as well. So as Steve indicated, the UVA Career Center is really large. They have a really robust team. They have folks who work on what are called the employer relations side of the house. So people who specifically work on connecting with employers, trying to source opportunities, putting job postings and opportunities within Handshake, which is the system that we use for that kind of thing. But then they also have a team that focuses on career advising. So they are specifically dedicated to working with students one-on-one, but then also identifying what student interests are and building programs and opportunities for students to learn more about what it looks like to work within those spaces. So because our team is so small, we leverage a lot of the resources that the Career Center offers, but then we also kind of do a lot of that ourselves. So we are both employer relations and then also both career advisors, meaning that we connect with people who are working within the positions that you're likely interested in, and then we're able to kind of funnel you into those roles, connect you directly with the people who've had the opportunities that you might want to gain more experiences with, which again is a really unique situation and opportunity to be in. So within the Batten School or within the Batten Career Services team, like I said, we offer a number of services. So primarily what we can offer students is one-on-one advising. So we offer students the chance to meet with us for, one-on-one, typically 30 minutes to cover a variety of career services related topics. I think most often we see students for resume reviews, cover letter reviews, application reviews, personal statement, but then also just general discussion around job and internship search. So helping you think about what it is you want to do, helping you understand what it is drew you to pursue a master's degree in public policy to begin with, but then also identify what do you want to do with that? What can you do with that moving forward? In addition to that, like I said, we also kind of wear an employer relations hat. So we coordinate with organizations and employers who we find our students tend to be more drawn to and organize programs such as info sessions. So the chance to offer you the opportunity when we were in person to meet directly with recruiters, meet directly with employer representatives who might have information about positions that you'd be thinking about long-term. We've had to pivot a lot, as you can imagine, within this virtual space, but I think that we've made it work. And I think it's been a really great opportunity to continue with that. And yeah, so I think that's the majority of what we can offer. Again, I think the best thing that I find that our students really get from our services is really feeling they get to know us and we get to know them. So by the time you graduate, we know your entire story and we're celebrating with you, whatever destination you've decided on at that point.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hannah. And I will say also, we help with offer negotiations and those things too. If you get to the very end and you've got an offer and you want to talk through some of the nuts and bolts of that offer. Let me talk briefly about the required internship, and then I'll talk a little about kind of where our graduates tend to go, and then that's pretty much it for the formal part of the presentation, and we'll take your Q&A. So as Hannah alluded to, you are required to do a internship between your first and second year. It's meant to be a co-curricular experience. So our goal is to get you out into the working world, so to speak, for a professional experience that complements your academic program. It is required. Normally, and I'll talk about this past summer, but normally there's essentially two requirements. One, it has to be policy related. Now we put that in quotes because policy related, we define very broadly. In other words, research for an investment banking firm would be policy related. Research for or policy development for someone running for office would be, or a current office holder would be policy related. Consulting work in the private sector or the federal sector would be policy related. Nonprofit work. We have a very, very broad definition of policy related. The other major requirement is 400 hours, and it must be during the summer. All these requirements can be waived by the dean. We typically try not to do that, but 400 hours is 10 weeks at 40 hours a week. Those are the two requirements up until this summer that we were pretty hard and fast with. Obviously, we had to kind of flex a little this past summer because we had a number of folks who had already secured internships lose those internships, and we had folks struggle to get internships. So we took that to the dean and presented the situation, which of course he was well aware of, but we kind of gave him some details. And he waived the 400-hour requirement. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a third one, in person, because we think organizational dynamics and office setting, right, that it lends to a professional experience. And as Jeff said, you're in a professional school. So telework prior to this past summer was generally not authorized because just sitting in your apartment doing work wasn't the co-curricular experience that we hoped for. So clearly we waived that this past summer, and telework was completely authorized, and many students completed their internship by telework. And we waived the 400 hours and loosened it to 6 weeks. And we did not put an hour requirement on what 6 weeks meant. And Hannah and I also kind of cast our net out maybe more than we do in some years and reached out to alums. And we have an advisory board as well of mid to senior level folks who can help with this. And local governments, Richmond Public Schools, Albemarle County Public Schools, Albemarle County government, and tried to develop as many opportunities as we could. And we were successful. We have 89 MPP students in our second year class, and all 89 of those students completed their internship requirement this past summer. So it's not going to be something that will keep one of the second years from graduating in May. Our office is the approval authority for that internship. So typically what will happen is a student might reach out at some point during the year to me and say, hey, Steve, I'm thinking of this opportunity, or I have this opportunity, will that meet the internship requirement? And most of the time the answer is yes. One of the ones that we almost never approve is pure canvassing for a political candidate. So knocking on doors or answering telephones for someone running for office, we don't consider to be as robust an experience as we'd like. Again, if you're on their policy team or their finance team and you're helping develop talking points and background papers, that's all great because you're actually doing research and producing policy memos for a potential future government leader. We do offer, since it is a required component of the graduate degree, we do offer what we call fellowship funding, which looks great on a resume. You might know it as a stipend for students who accept unpaid or low paid internships. It's a fixed pot of money. It comes from our foundation, so it's coming from donations from alumni and benefactors. And how much you get each year is somewhat dependent on how many people are asking for it. The dean does have it as one of his strategic priorities to increase the amount of funding available. But if you want a hard and fast number, depending on where you're living, it's going to be somewhere around the $3,000 to $4,000 range for that 10-week experience. It's meant essentially to offset your cost of living as best we can. If you're in the Charlottesville area, it's going to be closer to $3,000. If you're in Washington, D.C. or New York or sometimes overseas, we occasionally, again, not this summer, but occasionally have folks go overseas, could be in the $4,000 or slightly higher range. Okay, finally, let me just talk about kind of where folks go. The master's students basically bucket into three areas. One is government service. A lot of times that's at the federal level. So Capitol Hill, the executive branch, the departments, agencies, things like that. Some state, right? We have folks that go to Richmond, to North Carolina. In fact, two MPP grads are going to the budget office in Rhode Island this year. I don't know what it is about the budget office in Rhode Island, but it snagged essentially the equivalent of the OMB for Rhode Island, snagged 2 of our graduates this year. And a few at the local level, not that many, but some will go to local government level. That's about a third. A third will go into the broad category of nonprofit, non-governmental, think tank, international development, that type of space. which isn't governmental and isn't really for-profit companies. So it's kind of that middle ground of great policy work, kind of in between government and private sector. And then about a third will go into the private sector, heavily weighted toward the consulting field. So we're talking Accenture Federal, Deloitte Government and Public Service, Deloitte GPS. A few to McKinsey or Bain or BCG. They have small federal practices, EY, Booz, right? They all have small federal practices. Some will go into those companies and do private sector consulting, but the majority of our MPPs will seem to end up in federal consulting, which is heavily, anchored in the Washington, D.C. area. Lastly, let me just say that we don't have goals or expectations for any of our graduates. Some schools and some programs judge themselves on average salary, on prestige of organizations that their graduates go to, you name the criteria. We have none of those criteria. Our job, Hannah and me and Jill, see our role is to facilitate your search, help you determine what it is you think you want to do, help you find an internship that might inform that decision. But in the end, we don't place people. We don't track quotas on salaries or how many went to this type of industry or area. We treat everybody as an individual. And if you want to go make big bucks on Wall Street, we'll try to help you do that. If you want to go work for a small nonprofit in a small town, USA, we'll help you do that. And that's what we see our role is. And that's how we judge success, is our students going to the destinations that they want to go to.